Hey guys, what is going on? It is Brooke, or the Undead DM, back at it again with the final part of the complete Martialist Handbook by Benjamin Huffman. And in this episode, we're going to be going over the last martial class in this book, the Rogue. And I'd like to say before we start, sorry for being gone for so long. Few things have happened, but I'm back now. Hopefully, going to start uploading regularly again. Probably going to limit it to maybe once or twice a week from now on to not stretch myself thin like I had before. But with that being said, let's get started. So, the Rogue, it has 4 subclasses like every other class in the book. However, we're going to see that the Rogue subclasses are far less impactful than the other classes than the other classes have been before, and you're going to see why. So the first class is the Apothecary. This is the healing subclass for the Rogue. While in theory it is a very nice thing to have, it doesn't really work well in practice. And you'll see why. So at level 3, you get Chemist. You get proficiency in Alchemist supplies, Herbalism kits, and Poisoner's kits if you don't have them already. And if you have proficiency in them, your proficiency is doubled for any ability check that you make with them. You also get Craft Concoction. So at 3rd level, you can learn 3 concoctions from the list below. And you learn 2 additional ones at 9th, 13th, and 17th level for a total of 9. So you get 9 concoctions altogether. Doses. You can spend 1 minute crafting a dose of concoction that you know with materials you have on hand. You can create up to 3 doses per day and regain all expended doses when you finish a long rest. And all concoctions become inert after 24 hours, and you can make an additional dose per long rest when you reach 9th level, so you can make 4, 5 doses at 13th level, and 6 doses at 17th level. And finally, the saving throw is equal to 8 plus proficiency plus your intelligence if your concoction has one. So the reason why concoction is so bad, not terrible, but kind of bad in my opinion, is that, and not the fact that it takes you a minute, it's the fact that you can only make 3 doses per day. Not per short rest, not per anything else per day. It's per long rest. So this is already terrible for a class like the Rogue, which is a martial class that's meant to be used for every encounter and be effective in every encounter. But when your subclass is essentially hindered by a long rest, that's not good. Now, if these were very powerful concoctions, I would understand. But they're not. And you'll see I'm not going to go over every concoction at the end of the description, but I'll go over a couple. Biochemical lore at 9th level. When you are within 30 feet of something that you can see, you know if it has a vulnerability, resistance, or immunity to poison. You basically just get to know what its relationship with poison is. Is it vulnerable, is it resistant, or is it immune if they're within 30 feet and you can see it? So invisible creatures, creatures that are underground, they're fine. But everything else within 30 feet, fair game. At 13th level, yes, that's all you get for 9th level. It's just to know if they're vulnerable, resistant, or immune. You don't even get any damage upgrades, like your poison now bypasses resistance to poison damage, or something like that. None of that. At 13th level, you have resistance to poison damage, and have advantage on saving throws against being poisoned. This comes in far too late. This would be a much better 3rd level feature. Hell, I would say that this is probably a good 1st level rogue feature, just in general, but it comes in at level 13, which is too late to be getting something like this, because it's pretty much endgame already. It's just not a good ability to get. At 17th level, when you finish a long rest, you can choose one concoction you know, and make a number of doses of that concoction equal to your intelligence modifier, and they don't count against the number of doses you could make until your next long rest. So basically how this works is that up until 17th level, you're stuck making 5 doses every day between all 9 concoctions you can make. So you can't make any more than that. But at 17th level, which you're never going to get to in an average game, you get the ability to choose one concoction you know and make your intelligence modifier number of doses of that once per long rest. And they don't count against the number. So you can have, assuming you have a +5 intelligence, you can make 5 doses of the healing concoction, and then you can have 6 other concoctions of anything else. That should be the 9th level ability. It comes in far too late, it's far too situational, and it doesn't really help that late in the game. That should have been a 9th level feature. Hell, with the way that most people rework rogues and fighters and monks and barbarians, where they move a bunch of their abilities down levels to give them more power earlier, as opposed to waiting later in the game where they're less useful. This would be a really good, 5th level ability if you were to go a 5th level subclass rogue. Most people don't, but hey, that's just me. So, like I said, I'm not going to go over every concoction, but we are going to go over a few that interested me. So, Bitterbite Toxin, you apply a dose using the use an object action, and the next time a weapon deals damage, it deals extra poison damage equal to your sneak attack damage. And then this destroys it. This destroys the dosage, and you can't use it again. Fair. Then you got the Haste Tar, where you can apply it to their guns as a use an object, and then for the next minute, they add half of your proficiency bonus to their AC, and they can take the attack, one weapon on attack only, dash, or disengage action as a bonus action on their turn, and after a minute, they become exhausted, just like the haste spell, but worse. Even though I didn't think that was possible. The Restorative Tonic, a creature can consume a dose using a use an object action, and when they drink it, they roll your sneak attack damage dice, and they regain hit points equal to the result. So they could have potentially regained 10d6, which is only slightly better than a 3rd level fireball. Sure, 36 HP is pretty good as a use an object action, but use an object still takes your action. And it's 36 HP, which isn't bad, but requiring your action, not the best. Sleeping Syrup, it's basically just a sleep spell, except they, instead of having to roll dice, they just make a con save, or they gain a level of exhaustion. And the creature fails that save, they have to make another one. And then after 1 minute has passed, they become unconscious for 8 hours. It's alright. So, I'm just going to leave some of these up for you guys to read on your own. But needless to say, not a good start for the subclass. It's not very good in the sense that it does a lot for a class in terms of damage, in terms of assisting the team very much, but it's alright. Now we're going to go on to the Bouncer. So, the Bouncer is kind of the strength rogue, so to speak. So, at level 3 you get back alley training. And you gain proficiency with athletics, medium armor, and improvised weapons. And additionally, you can use your sneak attack against a creature when you make an attack with a melee weapon, even if it doesn't have the finesse property. So basically, you can use any weapon instead of just finesse or ranged weapons now. But it has to be melee. So you can use a two-handed, you could use a one-handed, you can use heavy, whatever. Also at level 3 you get anything at hand, where while you have a creature of your size or smaller grappled, you can use them as an improvised weapon. And if it's the same size as you, you treat it as though the weapon has the two-handed property. Otherwise, you make the attack with only the hand that you use to grapple them. And when you do so, you deal bludgeoning damage depending on the creature's size category, as shown below. And when you deal damage with a creature used as an improvised weapon, the target of the attack and the creature used for the attack take half the damage you rolled instead of the normal damage for the attack. So if they're tiny, they deal a d4, so pretty laughable. If it's a small creature, you deal a d6, not that bad. Medium, they deal a d8, most people are going to be anyway. If it's a large, don't know why there's a asterisk there, but whatever. It's probably in that little text box. I'll get to that. They deal a d10, pretty solid damage. A huge creature, 2d6, pretty solid. And then a gargantuan, 3d6. And it has saying here that the normal grappling rules, you can only grapple a creature one size category larger than yourself, using spells, yada yada yada. So just be wary of that. Barroom Brawler. At 9th level, when you take the attack action and make only grapple attempts, you can make a weapon attack as a bonus action. This is bad, because the grapple action, it doesn't replace your attack action. It's a full action in and of itself. At least as far as I'm aware. If I'm wrong, please correct me in the comment section. But if I'm not mistaken, the grapple action is a separate action from the attack action. Because if you could separate your attacks into more grapple checks, that would make this significantly better. But going off of what I believe is true, you can't make more than one grapple a turn using more attacks. Like if you're a fighter and you have 3 attacks, you can't make 3 separate grapple checks. And also, this doesn't help the rogue specifically. It might help the monk, or the fighter, or the barbarian in this sense, because they have extra attack. Rogue does not. They're essentially giving up their entire action to grapple, and they get a bonus action melee weapon attack, when they will just be better off hitting you with something else and then using crossbow expert bonus action attack, which does more damage and doesn't require them to try and grapple you, with a d8 hit die in light armor. Not a good circumstance to be in, but not a bad one either. Menacing Glare. As a bonus action, you could stare into the eyes of a creature you could see, and who can see you within 30 feet. You make an intimidation check using your strength, contested by their insight check. And if you succeed, the creature is frightened for a minute, or until you use this feature on a different target. And if a creature frightened this way ends its turn in a location where it doesn't have a direct line of sight to you, it regains its composure and is no longer frightened. Once you use this feature on a creature, you cannot use it on that creature again until you finish a long rest. A little bit strange that it doesn't specify that the creature is immune to it for 24 hours, and instead stipulates that you cannot use it against that creature until you take a long rest, meaning this is essentially a really interesting intimidation, like a tactic for torture, because you could just tie somebody up, intimidate them, scare the crap out of them, and when they can't run away, you can interrogate them for information. If they don't give it to you, just walk out of the room, wait 8 hours, and then just come back and do it again. Which is interesting. It's a little interesting, like nice roleplay thing. In terms of combat power, having it stop when you use it against another creature kind of limits the AoE crowd control and really only makes us a single target boss disrupt, but the boss is obviously going to just legendary resistance it or be immune to frighten anyway. It's a little strange. And finally, at 17th level, you get Ballroom Blitzer. When you make an attack using a creature you have grappled, you can use your sneak attack, even if you don't have advantage on the attack roll, but not if you have disadvantage on it. That's it. Overall, pretty weak subclass. It doesn't really get a lot in terms of useful features, and kind of just builds upon the mediocre feature, though pretty funny feature of using other creatures as weapons. What really hinders it is its damage aspect. It's kind of going for a weird crowd control damage like a crowd control damage character, where it's trying to utilize a crowd control ability in a grapple and then using the creature as a weapon, thus providing damage, but the damage to the creature being attacked and the creature you're using as a weapon take half damage regardless. And also, with Ballroom Blitzer specifically, it's stating that you can use your sneak attack, meaning by this wording, saying that you can use your sneak attack even if you don't have advantage, it doesn't state that the creature is now is now a weapon that can trigger sneak attack. Because if we go back, it says that you gain proficiency in improvised weapons, and you can use your sneak attack against creatures when you make an attack with a melee weapon, even if it doesn't have the finesse property. But nowhere does it say that you can use it with improvised weapons. Which, yes, is a little bit semantic, saying, well, they're going to be dealing bludgeoning damage, and they're considered weapons in anything at hand. Which is correct, you are correct. It still seems a little bit weird that you have to specify that now you don't have to have advantage, and even then, for a 17th level ability, not needing advantage to get your sneak attack on a subclass that is already bad at damage is a little strange. A little strange. I honestly would make it so that the damage dies are bigger, ignore the size requirement for grappling entirely for this subclass specifically. As stupid as it would look as a gnome rogue picking up a red dragon and beating people with him, it's fun. I would also specify somewhere in the 9th level ability, just give them Ballroom Blitzer at 9th level or earlier, because it's not really going to impact anything much. And also, don't nerf the damage to half. Is it going to be a little bit strong in the earlier game? No, not really. Is it going to be any more busted later on in the game? No, not really. Not with how the rogue is now. It's a little too weak, and it just nerfs rogues' already pitiful damage even more than what it needs to be. Second to last is Paramore. What I'm getting from this is kind of like the College of Glamour Bard. It's kind of the seductress, the enchanter, the man or woman who kind of distracts them with their beauty. So, at 3rd level, you get Romantic. You gain proficiency in Insight and Persuasion if you don't already have them, and your proficiency is doubled whenever you make a check using those 2 skills. You also get Thief of Hearts. At 3rd level, you can cast Charm Person and as a 1st level spell, and when you do so, the duration increases to a number of hours equal to your rogue level. The saving throw is 8 plus proficiency plus charisma, and the creature may regard you as a romantic interest, in addition to a friendly acquaintance at the DM's discretion. And you can use this a number of times equal to your charisma per long rest. So it's essentially Charm Person 3 to 4 times a day that basically turns you into Cupid, essentially. It's okay crowd control. Not good, not great though. Token of Affection, also at 3rd level. You can give a token of affection to a creature charmed by you. This token of affection can be any physical gift. The duration of the charmed effect on the creature becomes indefinite, ending early if you or your companions do anything harmful to it or you use this feature again. So, this essentially means that you can have one companion pretty much for the rest of the game, and you can have up to 5 other creatures if you have your charisma maxed out with Thief of Hearts, because Thief of Hearts and Token of Affection just takes one of the creatures charmed by you. And since it's indefinite, and that one and Thief of Hearts lasts 8 hours, or a number of hours equal to your rogue level, you can just have up to 5 creatures plus 1 more just follow you around and do pretty much anything you want as long as your party doesn't hit them. Then you're just screwed. Language of Love at 9th level. You can communicate non-verbally using body language, eye contact, and gestures with any humanoid who speaks at least one language and can see you. In addition, if you share a language with the humanoid who can hear you, you can use a bonus action to shower the creature with flattery in Honide words. Honide words? I'm not sure. That creature has disadvantage on saving throws and makes to resist being charmed by you until the end of its next turn. So, with Language of Love, you use your bonus action first, and then you use your action to use Thief of Hearts, and then you would use Token of Affection to make them a permanent addition. But again, this is all assuming that the creature can be charmed in the first place. A lot of high-level creatures can't be charmed, and a lot of creatures that can be affected by a charm are really, really weak, or at least not the best kind of thing to be keeping around, but they're just free bodies on the board, honestly. It's just like Conjure Animals, but it just takes longer. Inspire Harem. At 13th level, when you use your Thief of Hearts, you can target a number of humanoids up to your Rogue level once per long rest. So instead of using Charm Person on one person, you're using Charm People. And you could target up to, at this point, 13 people, meaning you can have a maximum of 14 people if you include your Token of Affection person. Again, it's basically just bodies, and this makes it about on par with Conjure Animals, but again, it only works on humanoids, and a lot of humanoids are pretty weak, so just be wary of that. And Jaded Jilter at 17th level, you can use your bonus action to jilt a creature who is charmed by you. Don't know what that means. This spurn wounds them so deeply that you deal psychic damage to the creature equal to your sneak attack damage, and the charm effect ends. In addition, your years of heartbreaks and heartbreaking have left you jaded. You are now immune to being charmed. So basically, Jaded Jilter, you can essentially choose a person and tell them to, piss off or whatever, and they get so hurt by it, you deal psychic damage equal to your sneak attack, and you also become immune to charm. Overall, subclass, not good. None of the rogue subclasses have been good so far. None of them. This one's going to be by far one of the worst, though, because it's relying on a mechanic that is not very good at later levels in the game, or hell, even mid-tier levels of games. Like tier 2 play, it's not really that good there either, because a lot of creatures start to become immune to charm. And even in the tier 1 levels of play, the higher ranking creatures that you'd actually want to charm are also either immune or resistant to charm effects. So, not having a way to bypass that at earlier levels with a class that kind of subclass that relies on it as its main gimmick or selling point is a little bit sad. And finally, we got Zealous Inquisitor. This is basically the Cleric Rogue. It's so strange. So you choose a Divine Domain from the Cleric list. You also get Zealous Magic. You get 2 cantrips from the Cleric list, and you learn another cantrip at 10th level. You get spell slots equal to the Zealous Inquisitor table, as you can see. And 3 first levels cleric spells, 2 of which must be from the divination and enchantment spells on the list. And you also get a spells known column. The spells learn at 8th, 14th, and 20th level. So here you go. The spells known column shows all that. A spell must be of a level you can learn, everyone knows that. And must be of a divination or enchantment, so it locks you into divination and enchantment exclusively. Or a spell from your choice from the Divine Domains list of domain spells. When you reach 7th level, you can learn 2 new cleric spells, which can be a 1st or 2nd level. The spells you learn at 8th and 14th and 20th level can be from any school of magic. And you gain a level in this class, you could choose to one of the spells you know, replace it with one you don't know. The new spell must be for the level you can cast. It also must either be from the divination or enchantment spell, or from the Divine Domains list of domain spells. And Charisma is your spellcasting ability. So, You get 2 cantrips known up until level 9, where you get a third one. You have 3 spells known at the start, and then you get 11th level, or 11 spells at 20th level. You get only 2 spell slots, and the maximum spell level is 2. Terrible. Absolutely terrible. Now, it doesn't say whether or not you regain them on a short rest or a long rest. Let me see. You must finish a... okay, so you get them back on a short rest. So this is essentially like a cleric warlock rogue, where you get less spell slots, less cantrips, and less powerful spell slot levels, but you get them back on a short rest. Still not good with only 2 spell slots, but hey. Judgment. At 3rd level, you can cast Divine Judgment, and as a bonus action on your turn, you can, within 60 feet of you, you could choose a creature, and the target cannot regain hit points or gain temporary hit points. It cannot become hidden or become invisible even by magical means, and you have advantage on investigation and insight checks that may make to interrogate the creature. This effect lasts for 1 minute, ends early if you fall unconscious or die. If you choose to end it, no action required, or if you use it again. And once you use this a number of times equal to your charisma modifier, you can cast Judgment again by expending a Zealous Inquisitor spell slot, and you regain the ability to cast Judgment without expending a spell slot when you finish a long rest. So it's essentially Divine Intervention, or not Divine Intervention, but whatever the cleric one is called. I can't remember off the top of my head. But it's essentially that, but you have spell slots that recover on a short rest now, so it's a little more useful, but also still kind of weak. Because it only is this ability. It doesn't give you the Divine Domains effects, which kind of suck. None expected. At 9th level, when you cast a spell that targets a creature on which you have your judgment on, you can choose to impose disadvantage on any saving throw the creature makes against the spell this turn. And if you do, the judgment ends, and you cannot cast judgment on that creature again until you finish a short or long rest. So basically a one-sided, if I judgment you, and then I cast hold person on you, I can choose to have you make it a disadvantage, and there's nothing you could do about it, but my judgment ends immediately. And I also can't cast it on you until I take a long rest again. A shorter long rest, which is a little bit better, but... Divine Reward. So you choose 1 3rd level spell from either the Cleric list or from the Divine Domains list of domain spells as a gift. And you can cast this spell once for every long rest. And when you finish a long rest, you can spend 10 minutes to pray, and you can replace the spell with another one. And at 19th level, you gain a 4th level spell from either the Cleric list or the Divine Domains list of domain spells, and you can cast it once per day. And then you could spend 10 minutes to change it out after you complete a long rest. Also at 13th level is Silence the Heretics. When you use your judgment feature on a creature, attacks you make against the creature before the end of the turn are made with advantage. And finally, at 17th level, Divine Judge. You regain the ability to cast Judgment without expending a Zealous Inquisitor spell slot when you finish a short or long rest instead of just a long rest. Okay, well, that's all of the rogue subclasses for the Martialist Handbook. Everything else down here is just weapons. If you want, guys, just let me know in the comments below if you want me to go over the weapons in this book to kind of tell you what I think about the weapons and how they go with the martial classes in general. But to wrap up this episode, we're just going to rank these by how effective I think they are, how well they fit the rogue theme, or how well their abilities function together, and just overall how good they are. So I think obviously the weakest one here is the Bouncer. Actually, it might be a tie between the Bouncer and the Paramour, because Paramour requires you to charm somebody, but charming people isn't easy in later games because of the immunity to charm effects, and it doesn't have anything that can bypass charm effects. Or charm immunity. Sorry. doesn't have anything to bypass charm immunity, so it kind of sucks. But then again, College of Glamour also has a similar problem, so kind of hit and miss here. But honestly, I'm gonna give it to the Bouncer because the Bouncer, it halves the rogue's already terrible damage using its own gimmick. So I'm gonna put Bouncer at 4th. I'm gonna put Paramore at 3rd because it's still not the best. And honestly, I'm gonna put Zealous Inquisitor at number 1, and then I'm gonna put the Apothecary at number 2. Apothecary still isn't good, but it's better than the other two. And honestly, I think Zealous Inquisitor being a rogue cleric warlock is a little interesting. Yeah, it gets less spell slots, and it's choosing from the cleric list, but even with the cleric list, you're still getting things like Bless and Spirit Guardians, and it's still good. It's still very, very good. And if you chose one of the other, and if since you can also choose from the domain spell list, there's a chance that if you choose one of the other cleric domains, you could also get Goodberry, which is not as good on you as it is on a life domain cleric, but it is still good. Especially if you take the magic initiate feat and then you just do it that way. It's still not good, but I think it's better than the apothecary, which can only do it a certain number of times per long rest, as opposed to the Inquisitor that can do it the same number of times every short rest. Well, not the same number of times, it's less, but you could do it more frequently since you should be taking more short rest than anything. Anyway, that is the end of this video. I'd like to thank you all so much for watching, and again, I apologize for the month-long hiatus, just everything's been going crazy. Please leave down in the comments what you would like to see, and I will see you all in the next episode. Laters.